So good afternoon and welcome to our panel presentation. The future is analytics, opportunities in big data and marketing. I'm Gillian Maury, the facilitator for this session, and with us today we have Sui Chua, Senior Director, Indusia Global Solution, Samantha Morris, Marketing Manager, Conduent, Venton Brown, Assistant Vice President, Human Resources, Sutherland Global. Globally, companies generate vast amount of data in the form of log servers, web servers, transactional data, social media sites, and various customer-related data. Ideally, companies use all generated data to derive value and make impactful business decisions. It enables better decision-making, efficient operations, effective marketing, serving your customers better. So let's define exactly what data analytics is. It's the process of exploring and analyzing large data sets to find hidden patterns, unseen trends, discover correlations between the trends, and derive valuable insights to make business predictions. It improves the speed and efficiency of your business, while big data is what we call prescriptive analytics, and is set to reach over US 273 billion in the year 2023. Big companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, and Google are heavily invested in collecting data and using same to mine your private information and for enterprise purposes. So what does that mean for business and the future of work? How does that transcend into new and emerging career opportunities for skilled professionals? I'm sorry, I have something flying over me. My apologies. I'll ask Sui to start the discussion for us, for the audience. So go ahead, Sui.
Thanks for the introduction, Gillian. It's
You're
great
welcome.
to see so many names on the viewers list. It's a bit funny not to be able to see you, but welcome to this segment of the fair. My name is Sui, and I am Senior Director of Business Excellence in GSS Jamaica. And my team does a lot of data analytics. So when you think about, BPO industry, as we call it now, I know we're rebranding it in some ways. We think of the image that comes to mind tends to be a lot of people in a big room taking phone calls, essentially, right? So what is there for persons who are interested in analytics? Now, think about it. We have large numbers of people handling claims, handling queries from different clients, different processes, different companies all over the world, right? The question for us is, how do we get so many persons, hundreds in a program, maybe even thousands, to do what the client wants them to do in a way that the client wants it done? Okay, there's a way to answer a phone call. There's a way to make sure that the information provided is correct. There's a way to greet the customer that, one client may want it differently from another client. How do you get large numbers of persons? And most of people who join our teams are, they're not specialists. They don't come out as specialists in the field that they're working in. How do we get them to do what they do well? How do we make sure that we meet the targets that the client sets for us? So for those of us who are not in the BPO industry, we get very clear, very objectively set targets by our clients. We need to answer the calls within a certain percentage of calls within a certain time, a service level. We need to make sure that the handle time of the time it takes, let me not speak in BPO jargon, the time it takes that for the average time that an agent, is on the phone talking does not exceed, a certain amount of time. It's not too long. And the quality of the call needs to be of a certain level. Again, based on the company's criteria, right? On the client's criteria. How do you get persons to do that? And to do that, you do need data and you do need analytics. How do you make sure that people turn up to work on time? We can't roll up to work at 8:30 just because we happen to, wake up a little bit later if the job starts at 8 o'clock, It doesn't quite work that way. How do we make sure that when we have a problem, when we're not meeting our standards, how do we get ourselves out of that whole. How do we improve ourselves? How do we make, as Gillian mentioned, how do we make our processes more efficient? How do we do what the clients need us to do in a way that is, efficient and more cost effective? That's all about continuous improvement. Behind all that is data analytics, and as Gillian mentioned, we do that by capturing a lot of data. There is data on every piece of quality on the calls that the advocates take, that the agents take. We think about sampling. We can't have a manager listening to every call. How do we sample the calls? And how do we score them? And how do we keep the data that we're scoring in a way that we can analyze to see who is doing well in what, who is not doing so well, and where, so that we can then identify what action needs to be taken to make sure that we're meeting the service levels. How do we identify, we get the data on calls handled? What sort of calls are causing us to have longer handle time? What sort of calls are not causing us to have are meeting the standard? And for the calls that are having a longer handle time, how do we identify what's causing it to be so long? Why are we taking so long? Why are we holding on the phone for so long? What processes are we waiting for to happen before we can deal with the customer queries? That is all about process analysis, data analytics to get to where we need to get to. And once you have all the data, you need to churn it, you need to analyze it, and you need to visualize it. You need to share it with persons who are very strong in operations. They know how to do their job, but they don't have time to think about data the way we meaning persons who are data nerds like me, but I want to think about it. And how do we present the information so that the consumer, in this case, the operations team, the team leads, the quality persons, the support, the advocates themselves can understand what's happening, where they're doing well, where they're not doing well. And most importantly, what do they need to do next in order to improve? All of that is data analytics. We use, in our company, we use all sorts of tools to get there. We use, the basic ones would be Excel. We use Microsoft Access. We use Tableau. We use Power BI to visualize. SQL servers as well, potentially, depending on the data sets. And all of that requires data analytics skills. So it's not really, as someone said before, it's here. It's not only the future, it's here now. We need all of the information, all of that data to be turned into information that is useful for the businesses in order for us to have large numbers of people do what is dictated by the clients, do what is required. And that's no mean feat. And most importantly, it's a very interesting job for those of you who think it's kind of boring. So we have been doing that at HGS. And some of you might be wondering what sort of skill sets we're looking for in that kind of a role, right? I have a background in economics. So that's one skill set that basically numeric skills. I have a background in economics. My team members have backgrounds in computer science, in actuarial studies. And when I recruit, that's kind of the math, the statistics, computing is great. Finance is also an okay base if you're a quantitative person, basically. So we need persons who are quantitative minded, very analytical, can problem solve, has the ability to ask why and why and why, several times in order to get the answer, basically. And definitely it would be for this kind of role that I'm describing, and there are other sort of peripheral roles as well that fall into it. That's kind of background that we're looking for. We also have persons who do reporting and who do sort of workforce management, which is basically forecasting, scheduling, and reporting, as I said. And that, I think you could come in with a high school diploma, with the right sort of, with the right skill sets and aptitude, and you could grow into that role. I think most persons, I'm not sure about Conduit and Sutherland, but most persons in that kind of role in our company actually come in as an agent and grow into those roles after a couple of years if they have the inclination to do so. So there's a couple of layers and a couple of levels of skill set that we look for in this kind of analytics world in the BPO sector. I think that's it. Did I cover what I was supposed to
I
cover.
think you did see it you gave us steps as to, what to look for, what skills to look for, as well as how you can enter at one level and move up in analytics. It was pretty insightful as to your skill set is in economics, but you're now in data analytics, which is an emerging career in Jamaica.
Yes.
So Samantha, the marketing companies are, I think, have a lot of big data, but one of the challenges locally is that we do not mine that data, particularly on social media sites. If you could just give us some insights as to your role as marketing manager of a BPO company.
Sure. Thanks, Jillian. Thanks, Sweet. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Morris. I'm the marketing manager for Conduit Jamaica. So I want to start by giving a little background about, Conduit and what it is that we do, and also speak about marketing and how it plays a role within this company, within the sector. So Conduent is not new to Jamaica. We've been around for, 30 years. We operate in 22 countries and we have over 60,000 associates. Locally, we have over 4,200 associates. When I started at Conduit, my primary focus for the marketing portfolio was really based in Jamaica. I've been in a lot of different fields, starting out with fast moving consumer goods, transitioned into telecoms, then into hospitality and tourism, then into financial services, and now into BPO. So you can see that the transition has been different throughout my career. What is the common thread, though, is that for all of those entities that I've worked with, every single marketing or core marketing skill sets, ranging from, brand management, public relations, internal communications, everything has come with me to Conduent. And so right now I'm using everything. It's a complete, amalgamation of everything that I've done throughout my career. So for us at Conduent, just bringing it back a little bit, we primarily employ persons that fall within the millennial to Gen Z categories. And so for us to do that, we have to have very concise, very bold, and very engaging communication. Now, one of the ways we're able to identify one that is our target audience is through the data that we're pulling through, recruitment marketing campaigns that we're pushing on Facebook and more recently our Instagram pages. We've also recently started using a talent marketing platform called Symphony, and this allows us to infuse a lot of our core values internally into the language that we're using in campaigns, as well as the kind of ads that we're pushing out on digital media. And on the back end of that, we're able to analyze, based on the applications that are coming in, the ages of the persons, general geography in terms of persons that are sending applications. We're able to use that to gauge how successful or recruitment marketing campaigns are, and tweak that so that we can stay relevant and accessible to this market. As you know, persons within these two specific demographics consume data in very bite-sized portions. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're employing, has to be very to the point. It has to be very strong. It has to be very bold. And how we're able to keep innovating and refreshing the campaigns that we're doing, and improving as we go along, is to tap into the data that we're able to get from the back end. When you talk about Facebook and Instagram, on the back end of that, you have a ad management system that allows you to see who is applying and from where. And so what that allows us to do is to identify the specific geographies within the regions of Jamaica, from persons where we are having, higher applications versus lower applications, and then revising our methods that we're using to interact with these persons. So it helps us in that way. It helps us to stay connected to the target demographic that we are, looking to hire, or persons that are interested in roles within our organization, as well as keeping us abreast or on top of, what's happening within the industry overall. We at Conduent, we are a part of the Global Services Skills Council, And that focus, the focus of that organization really is to provide upskilling for Jamaicans that work within the BPO, ITO, and KPO sectors. And we joined that because we see the changes that are emerging within the sector and the opportunities for, very diverse careers that are present. A lot of persons, really would think that for you to work in the BPO, KPO, or ITO sector, that what you are going to, be able to do is production based, meaning you're sitting on a production floor taking calls. And there are so many more opportunities, diverse opportunities that are available in areas like facilities management, human resources, talent acquisitions, logistics, marketing, and so much more. So even if you start out in that space, you're able to go into different areas. Now, I know we spoke about the data and pulling data from, the social media platforms and how we're utilizing that. So apart from, using the data for that purpose internally, we also use it because once we have persons who have joined the organization, you're now talking about talent retention within the organization. And so from time to time we will, post or create internal surveys that keep us connected with our talent base internally, and they are also able to be brand ambassadors for us outside of the organization, which is very important when you're asking people to buy into the product or the narrative that you are, putting out there.
Okay, thanks for that, Samantha. Your big data mining that you do, you spoke a lot about your internal stakeholders, but what about your external stakeholders? How do you engage them using that data that you would mine at the back end, or is it that done at your company?
All right, so I don't think, based on what Sui just shared, certainly at the local level within my specific department, we are not getting into the nitty gritty of the data or analyzing the data like a Sui's team would do. We are more looking at the data in terms of the geography, the the ages of the person applying, the areas or specific roles they're applying to, and seeing what we're getting more interest in, and then revising the talent marketing recruitment campaign. So that is how we're using the data. We're using it to drive and push our talent recruitment campaigns. That is really how we're using the data, to enable us to have access to and engage with the talent that is out there, that are interested in roles within the organization at different levels.
Thanks for that. A good segue into Kenton as Assistant Vice President of Southern Global Human Resources, using data as Samantha spoke to recruit and to analyze and to select candidates. But when you select that candidates, how does it align or sync with, when you onboard them in their performance management in HR? Did you make a good selection based on that data mining that you did? And when you onboard those clients and they're in the organization, how are they performing?
Right. So I think what the first thing I want to make is that there is a realization or an acceptance that the world has become tech-based. I mean, that's almost like old news. What is new is the fact that the emergence of big data and analytics is now common, within, not just within the BPO space, but most multinationals in Jamaica. That is now something that is in demand, and for very good reason. Yeah, a study by IBM showed that almost 2.5 million of bytes of data is created on a daily basis, just that alone. So human resources has come to the party. I mean, we're finally realizing the importance of data, and big data is, pretty much in form of people analytics, is being increasingly used for recruitment or retention, and to make very important decisions related to employees. So what we're talking about is how, as managers internally within at Sutherland, and I'm sure with all my other colleagues in the different BPO companies across Jamaica, we use data to understand and make decisions about our workforce. We use statistics, mathematical information technology to basically to apply to large set of data. And then we use that to now manage the talent that we have internally. So therefore, we have a lot of people analytics that is used for data-driven approach to how we manage our employees. So critically, there was a world conference in about 3 years ago where the expert determined that the success of people analytics lie, one, in data and common sense. And the reason around this is this simply. 50% is cold hard, just the information that you're looking at, that the raw data. But there's also a 50% of how do you use that information. And one of the challenges that we have within HR is that our work tends to be repetitive and time consuming. So HR has been using this data analytics to make our job easier. So if you talk about software like robotic process automation, RPA, that does work for us like filing, copying, assisting complex multi-step processes. What that does is that it allows HR to focus on other strategic tasks such as interpretation and decision making. From an employee experience point of view, if you want to know what employees want, and if you know, then you can actually make better people decisions. And that's where tools like behavioral analytics can give you insight into employees' behavior. And then we talk about like unbiased decision making, because people analytics deal with many complex data. And if you're going the route of having, say, you're using spreadsheets, that would not allow you to be able to look at the data with the certain insight that you need. But the fact that you now have the application, the software that allows us to make unbiased data-driven decisions, not based on personal preferences or prejudices, then HR and business leaders can use that data for better people management. And then if you talk about when we're the data collection that we have, within our organization, in the old days, it's used to be looking on HR files. All of that information that we have on those physical files can pretty much be in a HR database. And that database helps HR to make better decisions, not just in terms of recruiting persons, but if we're talking about how do we manage our attrition rate, our performance management, our talent management, then because we have the data at our fingertips, and there are ways we can interpret that data, it helps us to understand what's happening within our organization. So if you even look at high employee turnover, we agree that the reasons for employee turnover may vary. You start to tackle this by figuring one, where the problem lies and the impact it's having. But if you just think for a moment, if you have machines learning algorithms that can figure out why the employees are leaving, or even figure out why is it that the employees most likely to leave, can you imagine how that can inform your strategy as it relates to your retention strategy? One of the most exciting projects that we're working on now is performance management. How can be managed by predictive analytics? Predictive analytics is pretty much a practice of extracting information from already existing data to determine relations, patterns as it relates to human behavior, and trends that could arise. What we're now able to do is to use that insight into employee preferences and then use that to develop strategies how we can actually help to boost employee productivity. So the reality of it is that the world is changing, and not just within the BPO industry. I'm quite aware that there are other companies, locally major companies, that have now realized how important that data can pretty much ensure that their bottom line increase. And if we just step back and think about the world that we're living in now, a company is looking on, we got 100th of a second to get their message out to their consumers and to capture their attention. And if we want to localize it, just look at Digicel and Flow, how they're competing for the customer's eyes and ears. That is quite practical as it relates to how they're using data to precisely outline their consumer groups and make sure they have real-time exchanges that promotes interactive communication, bridging certain relationships with their customers. And that is no different for as it relates to internally in any company, how you can use data to be strategic and make sure that it is driving the business performance, whether from an operational point of view or from a business financial perspective.
All right, thanks for that, Kenton. I would like some insight, right? We're human beings. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have attitudes, and you spoke about behavioral analysis. Um, in organization, I think it's important that we balance the quantitative analysis, the use of big data, use of looking at trends with the qualitative analysis as well. It's important to recognize that yes, data is big and it's driven by analytics, but the human approach, the qualitative approach. So someone may fail a test, um, an aptitude test, but the attitude is there. You know, how do you assess that person entering that company? Is that if they fail the aptitude test, there's no way you would look at that person, and they come with a lot of experience and good references, but they just can't pass beyond that test, those tests that they go through. How would you approach someone? You know, persons here, a lot of applicants are here, um, in your company. How would you look at that, a person like that? What's the approach that you would use?
All right, so the first thing I want to take back is we don't have a standardized profile aptitude test.
Mm-hmm.
Each test is built according to the particular client needs. We look at the job description, what exactly the job needs. So, for example, you may have some jobs that need persons who understand and possesses the traits to sell. For example, you have some jobs which focuses predominantly on customer service. You have persons who may be strong, or they have their personality is more geared towards being able to be very convincing. They have very good negotiating skills. They have very good influencing skills. Those are very critical for someone to excel in sales. You may on the other side of the pyramid, you may have someone who are better in terms of customer service. So our instrument tends to be tailor made based on that. That's the first and foremost point. The second point is it's a mix, it's a bag of tools that is used in terms of our selection process.
Right.
So the attitude test is just one of the tools that we use to basically select. So there is the screening process, there is the interview process, and there are several rounds of interviews. So we don't over rely on one instrument to get the outcome that we're seeking. And we find that that works for us.
Sounds good. For Samantha, tertiary graduates, high school graduates, what are the skill sets required and qualifications that you look for, particularly at Conduent or in your role as marketing manager? What are you looking for? Today, it's a career fair. We have a lot of applicants. What would you, in your role, be looking for?
All right, so for me in marketing, I found that having a first degree in communications was a really good base. For persons that are looking to enter into the marketing field or enter into marketing within a BPO company, what I would advise you to do if you're leaving high school or you're in university and trying to find a major, I would say look to do something in integrated marketing communications that has a good mixture of traditional marketing as well as digital marketing, which is the era that we're operating right now. It's also very important for you to brush up on any skills or any theoretical, you know, things that you would have been learning there. So I'd also encourage them to look at ongoing studies. So for us here in Jamaica, you can complement what you've done with a first degree by doing courses in content marketing, social media, search engine optimization. And those are offered at places like UA, at the University College of the Caribbean, NCU, the iCreate Institute. You can also do them internationally or overseas, online, of course. And those are available at the Digital Marketing Institute, the American Marketers Association, there is Udacity, Coursera. So there's a plethora of places that persons can access either just shorter programs or longer programs in order to get into the marketing space. But that is what I would encourage persons who are looking to enter the field to look at in terms of qualifications.
Thanks for that, Samantha. Sui, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yes, that's a yes. Um, um, Analytics, I'm excited. Big data, I'm also excited. But how, if you could highlight for us the use of analytics in specific segments such as operation or finance, how do you use the analytics in those segments?
Okay, so in operations, so one example would be, I could draw upon if we say, I'm just trying to think about which would be a good example to use. So in terms of quality, for example, right, there would be one area in operations that we have to meet a certain quality level. And typically in any operations, in any program, we have what you call like a scorecard that we agree with the client. These are the important things that we need to look out for. This is how you grade them. These are the scores, these are the ranges and that kind of stuff. So you have a scorecard. And we would typically maybe sample just 2-3 calls a week for every single agent, and we score them, right? It's to be a random sample. So over time, depending on the size of the program, we get quite a substantial amount of data that tells you, maybe up to on each scorecard, how did you do and where did you fail? And potentially, if you design the scorecard well, you also have a category that tells you why did you fail that area? Was it because you didn't read properly? Or was it because you didn't close properly? Was it because you didn't ask the right questions? That kind of stuff, right? So you have the information. So for example, let's say when we report to the client, we say this is our quality score on a weekly, monthly basis. Their target might be 90%, 95% that we have to meet on average. Doesn't mean that everybody has to be there, but the average has to be there. So let's say for 1 month, your target is 90% and you slip down to 88%, right? You have to figure out what went wrong, right? Some people are still at 90. Is it, some possibilities might be, is it because you have new people who came in who didn't know a particular area? So was it because they were new persons, they're less experienced? Is it because we had a change in the type of calls that were coming in? Is it because of a group of people who might have been, let's say, we find things like when we drill down, who are working from home right now, for example, right? And who have power and internet issues, and you disconnect and you didn't make a proper report. And so you get graded down because it's considered to be a disconnection of the call, for example. Whereas, while it could have been genuinely that your power went out, but you didn't report it to your supervisor, so there was nothing in there, right? So we would need to take that data set for, let's say, 3-4 months, maybe more, and see what the trends are. And then we will need to break it down by individuals. The persons who are doing badly now, in which areas are you doing badly? So you're drilling down quite a few levels. So you have to identify as to where they're doing badly and then see what the trend is. Have they always been doing badly? And if they have always been doing badly, who was a trainer? Did they all go back to one trainer? Was it a training that was a problem? So these are some of the things that we would have to do operationally. That's one example. From a support services sector approach as well, or rather problem solving as well, there's a lot to do. I mean, and I'm glad that Samantha had mentioned that as well, because, in finance as payroll, right? Payroll is, you're paying a lot of people, and all of us know that we don't get paid on time, it's a problem. We don't get paid correctly, it's a problem, right? And the hours are coming in, and we, right now, for example, we have a lot of adjustments that we might need to do, right? So if you're working from home and when you're working in the office, you don't have a power and internet issue. For example, if you're working from home, you might have those issues. Which ones are what hours are payable and what hours are not payable? Is anybody abusing the paid hours when you're working from home and actually not really working, right? All of that requires a lot of data analytics. You could do it manually, but it'll take a lot of time and be very inefficient. Or you could take a whole bunch of data, and instead of having a team lead or a supervisor go and look through every single person, you could churn that data and highlight, okay, these are cases out of the 1,000 people. These are the 57 cases that somebody should look at because the others are correct. So that's one bit of data analytics that makes things more efficient. The other one is, for example, logistics that we don't think about in a BPO sector, for example, right? So we have AGS, we're growing. We have almost 4,000 employees. Many of them work from home, but some of them work in office, right? And in COVID, guess what? We have to sometimes provide transportation, right? And the logistics of making that transportation arrangements efficient is really quite something that could benefit from a lot of analytics, right? I mean, you might look at it and say, why is my cost so high? Because you're sending one person by taxi here, one person by bus there, when you could group them. How do you do that? How do you do that efficiently, get the people to where they need to be on time and not leave anybody behind and not overpay, right? That's analytics as well. So there's a lot of avenues, whether it's in operations or whether it's in the support services, to make that efficient as well. If we got our hands and we had the time, then all that scores that we get from the first level assessment that we do would also be important. Is it that, which one is more important? Is it a math score, or is it their answer to some attitude questions, their time management skills, the willingness to what's their personality like? Are they likely to give up and move to a new problem, or are they likely to persevere? And sometimes you find a balance of, persons who might score less good in their maths or their language, but are showing great tenacity and the ability to just, I'm going to make this work. And that's also potentially analytics as well. But definitely in payroll, in transportation, in the support services, a lot that we do, and more that can be done in addition to operations.
So I would love to pick your brain, possibly in a different session, in a different session after this. But I've been tasked with producing, and I'm not sure where to get to the Q&A. If anybody has some questions, we have 8 minutes left.
Comments in the sidebar.
So
I guess persons can put in their questions
if
in the chat.
If there are any questions for the panelists, we would love to hear from you.
And I guess if I might just say, if anybody has an aptitude for analytics and is interested in being part of that kind of team, feel free to find me on AGS. You can find me through the websites, or send me an email, swee.chua@teamags.com. So I'm not sure whether you share that information, Jillian, but
sure, no, I didn't actually. But I'll ask just each panelist to just leave with the audience, everybody, that we have 123 viewers, some key takeaways for them. We don't only have applicants here, we have business leaders, we have stakeholders from the industry. We're in big data, future is analytics. Just give us some key takeaways, and we'll start with Venton.
Yeah, so, we're hearing more and more, even in this presentation, there are more jobs in the local market for data analysts. And, in some companies, job titles vary from reporting to business analyst. Once you're in the data analyst space, you will be in a position where you can leverage your knowledge directly or indirectly across several careers: workforce management, finance, business controlling, talent acquisition, just to name a few. The reality is that once you're in the data analysis space, there are endless career opportunities. And the reality is that we're having a scarcity of talent within Jamaica. It's very difficult to find talent who are interested in getting into this area. And the opportunities are not just local. I mean, a data analyst, for example, in US has the potential to earn anywhere between $80,000 to $150,000 per annum. So this can be if persons are serious, this can be a career that you can actually pursue. So all I can say is that the sky's the limit, and this is a new emerging area that I'm encouraging more Jamaicans, if you have the interest. Swee has thrown it out there. I'm also would be quite more than interested in sharing with persons more information about it if you're interested.
Samantha, thank you for that, Venton.
So for me, I would, speak to, persons who are interested in entering any one of the BPO, IT, or KPO sectors, and specifically marketing. There are a lot of diverse roles that are available within these sectors. It's not just restricted to a certain area, and that's going to be changing within the next few years. There are a lot of new roles that are emerging. Certainly within the marketing space, you can look for things that are coming out for, a content manager, content strategist, user experience designer, social media manager, social media strategist. So there are a lot of roles that are emerging within this space that are focused more on the content, the analysis of content, as well as the data related to campaigns that are being pushed out by these entities. So I would encourage persons who are interested to get into the field to, research the companies within the different sectors that I mentioned. Also look at, what are their growth prospects or their plans, if possible, for the next 3 to 5 years, and identify roles within those spaces that you think that you have an interest in or a passion in, and align yourself, by doing your research or getting qualified in those areas. You can also, create a portfolio. We want to see the work that you're doing or the value that you're going to
Right.
be bringing to the organization. So show us the work that you've done on projects in high school or your university projects, perhaps in your community. Put together a portfolio or a body of work that represents you and how you can add value to each of these organizations. Submit your application and do your networking. Networking is very important. Even though that's been impacted by COVID, you can still find yourself in a lot of digital spaces, on platforms. Twitter is a very great one. I learned so much through Twitter. And there's a saying there that, my next client or employer might be on your timeline. And that is true. You never know who you're interacting with in these spaces. And it's very important for you to really have a strong representation of yourself and your personal brand. So I would advise persons to do those things, as well as, we're always looking for driven and very, strong persons here at Conduent who are very innovative and passionate about their jobs. So if you're interested in joining, guys, after this discussion, you can visit our jobs website, jobs.conduent.com, and check out what's available. So I hope to see some applications coming in. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for that, Samantha. Sri, I'll ask you to just repeat that information that you gave, your contact information to
Sure. I can put it in a chat as well if that helps. So my
that would
email
help.
would be, how
Mm-hmm.
do I do that? That's a very good question. How do I add a chat? It's a swe.chua, SWEE,
Uh-huh.
.chua at teamhgs.com. But if you go to our HGS website as well, you will find the general sort of contact information. I think I replied to somebody on the chat. I hope it
You
comes up.
did.
I did.
Okay. You're ahead
Yeah.
of me.
I
I
don't know
haven't
whether
found
only
the
that
chat yet.
person, I don't
I
know if
haven't
only
found the
that
chat
person
yet.
is seeing it or whether everybody is seeing it. But just for, my last sort of 10-second remarks is that, and maybe I'm preaching to the converted because you are here and you're interested in the BPO sector. I'm not a BPO veteran. I'm probably 2.5 years into the sector, and before that, I was in different areas of work. And I think I must say that the key thing is I've really enjoyed it. And do try it out. When persons come out with degrees in econ, finance, maths, they think of the traditional banking sector and all of that. But it is really interesting in the BPO sector because you get to apply those skills to working with people, because there are lots of people in that industry that with whom you need to share your work, and in order for your work to be useful, um, it needs to be embraced by the team, and that's a challenge that I think is very interesting. And as I think Benton said as well, it opens your world up to a global industry. It's
Right.
not just Jamaica. It's not just Conduit in Jamaica. It's not just Sutherland in Jamaica. It's not just Asia's in Jamaica. You are working with clients all over the world in big companies. Sometimes we're not the only call center. They have 2, 3 locations that are huge. But so we service them. You talk to the clients. You get to interact with them. You get to learn how it takes to operate in there. Well, it is really like being employed there, but working from home. it opens up your world. So I've really, I guess my last pitch is I've really enjoyed it. So take the,
All right.
take lunch.
All right. Thank you, Benton, Samantha, Sui, for joining us today. We live in a global world. The future is analytics. The future is big data. The future is big data mining to inform decision making. So thank you for joining us, and you have left your contact information. A lot of applicants have seen it, so thank you again, and have a good rest of the day, everyone.
Thanks for the
Bye.
opportunity. Bye.